All right, let's head over to the Zoom studio. We've got Mr. Loren Scott, Dr. Loren Scott, on the line with us here, down from Louisiana. Love the modern technology we have today, where we can get an update from Louisiana. How you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and he's very involved with the economy down there. In fact, he helps write the projections, at least in the past, part of the consulting, whether it's on the front end or back end. His fingerprints are all over it. And when we're talking about the economy, we got to talk about the oil and gas industry. We got to talk about the energy industry. Maybe Lake Charles we can sprinkle in there a little bit. But I do want to start off with the emerging carbon management industry. It's very polarizing. It's very political. It's there's a lot of different directions to go with it, but what people probably don't understand is that it's an old industry, really. It's been around for 20, 30 plus years within the oil and gas sector. Loren, talk to me a little bit about what's going on with the carbon industry down in Louisiana, and give a little bit of context, if you will, from your background when it comes to the carbon management side.
Well, as you said, I've been watching the Louisiana economy for about 40 years. I now write the Louisiana economic forecast. We're heavily into gathering the data for that right now. The carbon sequestration, carbon capture and sequestration activity is not so much associated that much with the oil and gas industry. It's more associated with the chemical industry. And so when you get on I-10 goes right across, I guess, where you tie the boot, make the lace on the tie of the boot across Louisiana, go east and west. That's I-10. Well, from I-10 south, you're having a major industrial boom going on. And the reason that industrial boom is going on is because the price of natural gas in Louisiana and Texas is way cheaper than it is in Europe or in Asia. So if you, for example, if you are a BASF and you're making ammonia fertilizer out of natural gas, that's your raw material, you're having to pay $12 per million BTU in Germany, but in Baton Rouge, you're paying $3 per million BTU. There's no way in the world you can compete in the world market if you're in Germany. So what is happening is firms from all over the world are chasing the cheap molecules, and they're coming specifically from on the Mississippi River, from Baton Rouge to the mouth of the Mississippi River, and then over in Lake Charles on the Calcasieu Ship Channel. And the reason they're doing that is A, there's a lot of natural gas available. There's a mass of pipelines there. It's easy to get to. But number two, the Mississippi River and the Lake Charles Ship Channel, ocean-going ships can navigate that. Deep draft ships can navigate that. So they can come up that river, come up that channel, and they can load up with these bulk chemicals that are being made and fertilizers and stuff like that, and they can go out to the world market through the Gulf of America. So, so what is happening is more and more of these now are wanting to produce blue ammonia, and by that they mean they want to capture the carbon and then sequester it. And so a number of these projects are ready to go, but they have not gone forward because they don't have the Class 6 well permit to sequester the carbon down in the salt domes or other layers that have been exhausted because oil's been taken out of it. As you and I mentioned before, Louisiana is one of what, 2 states now, maybe 3, that have primacy. We have the right to grant permits for our own Class 6 wells. Everybody else has to go through the U.S. EPA, right? The only way we're able to get that primacy awarded to us is to say we will be very thorough in providing public comments, public input into whether or not this well is okay. And so even though we have primacy, we're still going through that process and still have not issued a single permit for a Class 6 well yet. So we have a number of projects down here that want to pull the trigger, want to issue what we call a final investment decision, an FID, but they don't have the permit for the Class 6 well yet.
When you say the chemical industry, you mean like petrochemicals? They're what kind of That's
Yeah,
different because up in North Dakota, for example, we're another primacy state, and then
right,
Wyoming is the other one.
right.
And I'm not. That, I think those are the three.
Yeah, I think it's
So
three too.
Alaska, I think, was trying to get it, but um, in North Dakota, they were using enhanced oil recovery for carbon, 20, 30 years ago,
Right,
and and then now they're trying to use it with ethanol, and
right.
so they're bringing in the oil and gas industry. And someone made a comment to me the other day, and it's been ringing in the back of my head because there's a lot of times where an oil and gas company will use some renewable energy to be compliant. That's
Right,
basically the only reason they're doing it, is to be compliant.
right.
And somebody made the comment that the ethanol industry is now the compliance department for energy companies, and I thought, boy, there's some truth behind that. And so anyway, I'm just trying to track some of the carbon management
Yeah.
main customers and industries and where it's all coming from. And down there, it sounds like some of the petrochemical. And is that Lake Charles what we're talking about?
Uh, it's Lake Charles. It's mainly the Lake Charles Ship Channel area, which is Lake Charles all the way to the mouth, which gets you down into Cameron Parish. And we have parishes here instead of counties. And then from Baton Rouge to the mouth of the Mississippi River, which goes right through New Orleans all the way to the mouth. Well, the reason I started in Baton Rouge is because there is a bridge, what we call the old bridge, in the northern part of the city, that is so low that deep draft ships can't get under it. So we are the northern limit of how far up the Mississippi River deep draft ships can come. So they can come up right next to that bridge is, I guess, the third largest refinery in the United States, ExxonMobil refinery. They also have a big chemical complex there too. And they're just, they're loading stuff. They're receiving oil and they are shipping jet fuel and diesel and gasoline out of there using deep draft ships and pipelines, as it turns out. So
And
so
did,
these
did
so these companies are, some of them are wanting to be able to capture and sequester their carbon. So among other things, they can meet European standards for their product, because the Europeans have certain standards or they will not accept your chemicals. And so that's why they're doing this.
you mentioned blue ammonia, and immediately my mind registered as blue hydrogen, and then a second later it went, no, you said blue ammonia.
Yeah.
That's new to me, I think. I'm not sure I'm familiar with blue ammonia. I think I could probably figure out what it is, but
Well, I think here's how I think of it, Jason. I think if you're going to sequester your CO2 that comes off the production process, that would make you a clean ammonia. If you are not only going to sequester your CO2, but you're also going to use renewables to generate your electricity. You're going to get your electricity from solar or from wind or from water, something like that. That if you get not only your utility input from a renewable source, but also sequester your CO2, then you're blue. You've reached the peak. You got the ideal thing. Okay.
oh,
So that's how I distinguish between the two of them.
so so green would be like a letter grade B, and blue would be the letter grade A. Is that what you're
Right.
saying?
That's what I would say. Yeah. That's
Oh,
how I think of
wow.
it. Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
even
That's how I
realize
think of it.
blue was ranked above green. Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, blue, because blue includes green. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have both of them to be a blue. And so,
Sure.
we have Air Products, for example, wants to spend $4 billion building a blue ammonia complex just south of Baton Rouge. But part of their problem is they need to run about a 20-mile pipeline over to a lake we call Lake Maurepas, which is just west of Lake Pontchartrain. Some of your people will know where Lake Pontchartrain is. And they want to drill a well down below that lake, way below that lake, about 5 miles below the lake, and sequester the CO2 there. Well, as you can imagine, I mean, there's a whole set of people that don't like this whole idea. They don't like, they worry about leaks. They worry about all kinds of stuff with regard to this. And so they've had a heck of a time getting their class 6 well permit to do that. But the problem is the Department of Natural Resources, which issues this permit, they've got to follow the dadgum rules pretty closely, or the EPA is going to withdraw or going to take back our primacy authority. So they're being very careful about that. It's just taking a long dadgum time.
How about some of the shale play activity, or I should say oil play? I got involved in the industry when the shale thing was taken off.
Right,
So
right,
shale play USA is in my mind, you know.
right.
You got a dry play and then some offshore. Let's start with the dry play. What's happening up there in the northwest corner?
Well, right now, they are doing okay. That was the second play when all of the shale stuff took off. It started out with the Barnett play right around the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. Then it moved over to kind of the Shreveport area, the northwestern part of Louisiana. Then it moved from there to Fayetteville play. Then it moved up to Marcellus play, went to the Eagle Ford over in Texas. Well, when they were the number two, they were the peak. They had 141 wells being drilled up there. Today is probably closer to 36, something like that. But what is happening is these firms are building these LNG export terminals down here on the Calcasieu Ship Channel or down below the mouth of Mississippi, towards the mouth of Mississippi River. They would like to control their source of supply. And so they're starting to buy up leases up in the northwestern part of the state, in the Haynesville, in order to ensure that they're going to have natural gas coming down to them to feed their LNG export terminals. So I think that area is getting ready to take off because, number one, it is the closest natural gas supply to the LNG export terminals on the coast of Louisiana. It's way closer than the Permian Basin, for example. And of course, it's way closer. In many ways, it's better than offshore. And they are building a lot of pipelines to feed it, going from the northern part of the state down to the coast to these suckers. And so that's the pipeline building and the buying up of leases up there it's a strong play right now. Now, what you'll note, there basically no fracking for oil in Louisiana. We have a shale play in the southern part of the state, but unlike your play, which is very rocky. Ours is clay, very clayey. So when you try to frack it, you can't keep it open so the oil can flow out. So it just hasn't done a very good job. Our plays are basically that play in the northern part of the state, and then you have the offshore in the Gulf of America, which is a very big play for us.
And what's happening there? Because, I rarely hear about Gulf of America, but I'm also 3 hours away from the geographical center of North America. So, I mean,
Right.
I'm pretty landlocked here. Sushi is a gamble where I'm from.
Right.
And so, 25 to 30% of the global oil and gas or oil supplies offshore. I think about 20% in the United States on
About
any given
20% of
day.
the U.S. supply, yeah. That's
Yeah,
about
yeah. I mean, so it's a substantial amount of drilling, and I just never hear about it.
Well, I'm gonna quote numbers that are not precise, okay? But a typical shale well, let's say you drill in the Bakken play, okay? You would get maybe 100 barrels of oil per day starting out, and then it drops off like a son of a gun. We've got a very steep decline curve. In the Gulf of Mexico, you're going to hit a well that's in sand. You're going to get 130,000 barrels of oil a day, and it is going to have a very shallow curve. Okay, so you don't need many wells to produce a heck of a lot of oil, as it turns out. The tricky thing is you've got to know how to drill in water that is at least 3 miles deep, and where water pressures on the bottom are just unbelievable. I had a pal from mine at LSU who went off the Gulf of Mexico in the shallow water area, went down less than a mile deep, And on the outside of the little submarine, he had a basket that had a golf ball in it. When he came up, the golf ball was the size of a raisin. That shows you
Hmm.
what the water pressures are. Well, they're going at least 3 miles deep in the Gulf of Mexico. So they're going 3 miles of water, another 2 miles deep to get to the sand. The technology involved in that is just, it's just amazing what they're able to do.
Do you know what happened up in the Bakken shale play with that steep decline curve? Because that was I believe that was a surprise to a lot of the people that went into that play. They weren't expecting it to be as steep as it was.
Well, I think number one, it was steep, and it's still certainly steep compared to what you get in the Gulf of America. But these are, I like to refer to them as smart, clever, greedy capitalists out there in the field, man. When they see that, they start figuring out a way to change it. And so they've come up with all kinds of ways to more efficiently drill. Instead of, drilling one well, then moving everything over, drilling another one, they've learned how to drill more than one well off of one platform, so they don't have to spend so much time moving the platforms. They've learned how to break the horizontal part into smaller sections to make it and to be able to frack the rock a whole lot more efficiently. They've learned how to pump just the right amount of sand down there. They have actually now learned how to do a horseshoe horizontal well. It goes out, comes around, and then comes back to the wellhead. So they got even more area that they could frack off of one drill pipe. Just amazing stuff that they're doing. So that's helping them on any one well site get even more well out. They still have to struggle with the decline curve. They have slowed down the steepness, but it's still a pretty darn steep one, especially compared to what you get in the Gulf of Mexico.
That's one thing that we've tried to highlight as much as we can on the Crude Life. Because you can go a lot of different directions in the oil and gas news business. And when we got into this, the lifestyle and the innovation was where there was a nice opening for us. Of course, with the generalized news and decision makers and that kind of thing you bring with it. But um, when we were figuring out some of the technology side of things, I couldn't believe how amazing the technology was.
Oh
And
yeah,
I thought early on that the oil and gas industry was getting a bad rap because they're kind of the leaders in saving the planet, not polluting the planet. I mean,
right,
yeah, they got some issues here and there, but the technology they're coming up with is actually better than anything else out there that anybody else is doing in terms of trying to restore the land the way it was, recycle water, and all these different things. And then in the Bakken, great example, where the rigs start walking. They,
right,
they, they can use hydraulic walking feet
yeah,
so they can move the thing 20 feet so that you save time, you save
right,
energy, you save
right,
all kinds of different things. And, of course, you've got the rig mats that allow the fauna to come back and the flora to come back and all kinds of different things. So um, I think that's amazing is the innovation side of things. I would like to know more about the innovation on the offshore side of things because I know nothing about that. And
oh
that the raisin, the golf ball to the raisin, when we're
yeah,
talking about the pressurized things, I didn't
yeah,
even think about that. Didn't even think about
yeah,
the pressurized part of things. What
yeah.
what are just a couple innovations that is happening down there? Because I imagine down in Louisiana, man, you guys have got to be ready to put another person on the moon based on this stuff.
Yeah, it's well to give you like a really cool example is when we first started drilling offshore, which is 1951, I think what it was. The rig was actually attached to the bottom floor of the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, so you were kind of limited in how far offshore you could go because you could only go so tall, right? So what they discovered, I think it was in the 80s, somewhere in the 80s, they said instead of having something attached to the floor, let's, when you go fishing and you take your kid fishing and you throw out the line, there's a bobber at the top of the holding the line up and you watch that bobber to see if it goes out. Why don't we build something called a tension leg platform that floats on the top of the Gulf of Mexico? It will attach these long, big old chains will come off of it to attach it to the bottom of the floor of the Gulf of Mexico. Think about these chains that are 2 miles long. Well, they're way more than 2 miles long because you're 2 miles above the water. So they're spreading out like that. You're going to have thrusters on the side of this sucker that are connected to a satellite in the air that'll keep it stable. The thrusters will keep it stable. And now, like I say, you can drill in 2 to 3 mile deep water now with this floating platform up on top. And it's kind of like a little city. The people that work on these platforms may live in Kansas, they may live in Mississippi, Florida, wherever. What they do is they come to a spot down near the port of Port Fourchon, and these helicopters will take them out to this platform, and they'll work out there for 2 weeks, and then they're off for 2 weeks. Okay, and they make extremely good money. They live out on the platform, and these platforms can be 200 miles off the coast. They could be a long ways off the coast, but they fly them out there typically. Then there's a whole nother industry that has fleets of boats. Edison Schwest is the biggest one down here. Hornbeck is another one. And Tidewater, another one. They have fleets of boats that are going out there all the time, bringing water, bringing food, bringing pipe, bringing mud, whatever. And the interesting thing about that, Jason, is because of the Jones Act. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with the Jones Act, but the Jones Act says that if you're going to move product by boat from one U.S. port to another U.S. port, the ship that you use has to be made in the United States and has to be U.S. flagged. Okay. Well, guess what? Every one of those platforms in the Gulf of Mexico is considered a port, a U.S. port, which means that every one of the boats that supply them with stuff has to be made in the built in the United States and U.S. flagged. And so we have a big company down here called Edison Schwest. They have 3 big shipyards, and I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 mariners that work for them, constantly taking stuff off. They don't only build the boats, but they crew them too. So it's just there's all kinds of stuff that you're trying to supply a city that's got probably 120 people working on it at any one time.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I've talked to a few people that have, contracts with the energy company, and they get helicoptered out there for whatever the services that they have, and it's a experience you never forget, especially your first time. And so it's exciting to hear those types of things. But I thought they might be longer than 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. But they're primarily that traditional hitch too, huh?
Yeah. I mean, they could spend a day driving from wherever they live down to Port Fourchon, but they're off for 2 weeks. They can have another job for that matter. They're already making a ton of money working out there, but they can actually have another job because they're 6 months off. They're off 6 months of the year. It's pretty cool. Now, the other interesting thing about that is these tension leg platforms we were talking about, these suckers can cost like $2 billion to build. And so initially what they were doing is they were building a tension leg platform over every single site where they had a set of wells. They drilled more than one well off of each side. But then they said, these suckers cost $2 billion. Instead of building one over every site, we're going to have one platform here, and then over here, we're going to start drilling, 6 miles away. We're going to drill, and then we're going to have production stuff on the floor of the Gulf, and with a tieback to just one platform. One platform might handle, 6 or 7 different tiebacks to bring it to them, and then you come back to this platform, and then you have another line that'll go all the way to the shore. I mean, they're just clever as all get out. It's just amazing to watch it.
That's incredible. Lake Charles, you mentioned it earlier, and you brought up a great, I don't know if it's an example or a reality or a fact or however I want to phrase it, but there was a movement over the last 5 to 10 years where European companies specifically were coming into the port down there and basically just starting companies up because it was cheaper than paying $15 for natural gas.
Right.
So they would do the business here in America and then ship it over to Europe.
Mhm.
And with some of the changes that are happening in regulations and that sort of thing, what is happening down in Lake Charles just overall? That is such a healthy and important part of your whole economy and that southern economy.
Yeah, it's a very industrialized place. There's a lot of there are two or three refineries located there, then several chemical plants located there, and now the very first LNG export facilities in our state were built there. Cheniere and Sempra built export facilities there. That was followed by Venture Global, and now we just got an announcement that uh, it started out as Driftwood, but now it was taken over by an Australian company called Woodside, and they pulled the trigger. They're building a $17.5 billion new LNG export facility there. Then I think between now and the end of the year, you're going to find that Venture Global is going to announce something the final investment decision for their CP2 plant. That's Calcasieu Parish 2, not Calcasieu, Cameron Parish 2 plant, right next to their existing plant. It's about a $21 billion facility. I think there's a very good chance that Commonwealth is going to be a little bit smaller one, $8 billion. But I am using the word billion. I mean, back prior to 2012, I've been writing this forecast for 40 years. Prior to 2012, if we had 300 million in industrial construction across the whole state, we would have thought that was great. Lake Charles has already got 17.5 for sure, and probably another 30 billion coming right behind. So Lake Charles when we first had that spurt, between 2013 and 2018, Lake Charles was the fastest growing metropolitan area in the country in percentage terms. Their growth rate was it was right straight through the ceiling. Now, once they got those facilities built, it kind of dropped off because it takes a lot of construction workers, but they ended up at a higher level than they were before that. I think they're getting ready to go to another major spurt over there. It's just going to be phenomenal.
Well, that's all I got in my notes. Is there anything pressing in your world that you want to make sure people know about? You're kind of one of the heavyweights in the industry.
Well, the only other thing I would let you folks know about is building these facilities like this $17 billion facility that Woodside is going to build. You know, used to when you built these suckers, you would first of all pour the slab, and then you'd start building upward. You do what we call stick construction. So you had to wait till the slab was built, then you had to go start building it outside in the weather, and there's all kinds of problems with it. Now what they do is while they're pouring the foundation, about 60 miles away at the port of Iberia, they will start inside building components. Okay. Then they will build the components in a place called Port of New Iberia, float it down their channel to the Gulf of Mexico, up the Calcasieu Ship Channel, and tinker tow it together in Lake Charles. So you don't have to worry about the weather. You're doing it in a covered environment. You don't have to wait until the foundation is poured. This modular construction has dramatically speeded up and increased the efficiency of how you build these major big plants nowadays. You're seeing them start to use modular construction all the time instead of stick construction.
That's unreal. And I was going to ask you, you mentioned it speeds it up considerably. Do you know just, ballpark? Is it, twice, 3 times, 10 times?
Probably, I would say that at least doubles how fast, or cuts in half, I guess is a better way to say it. Cuts in half how much time it takes to build a plant.
That's interesting.
And
I would definitely keep an eye on that if I was anybody with any decision maker ability. And I'll just mention this as a kind of a comparison that in 2012-ish, we noticed private planes, there was an increase in private plane sales, little small ones. And that's when we was like, okay, well, things are going to speed up now because before a CEO had to drive for a day or had to, fly for a day or whatever the case. Now it's 3 hours they're there. And when you can speed up your transportation of your physical appearance,
Yeah.
because some deals you need to be there. You can't do everything over Zoom. You can't do
Right.
everything over a phone
Right.
call, especially
Yeah.
when you're talking about billion-dollar deals and hundreds of
Especially
millions
billion
of
dollar deals,
dollars.
you got to look them in the eye. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, yeah, when I saw the mainstreaming, if you will, of private aviation to where they were retrofitting a lot of these private jet centers and that sort of thing to accommodate this new level of transportation, I'm going, okay, things are going to speed up pretty good here now in the business world. And
Yeah.
that's what that reminds me of down there, is
Yeah.
that you okay now you're on double time, people. You can't,
Yeah.
it's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
So do you guys have a formula for that when you're putting together the economic model, or does that catch you on
I will tell you
surprise?
this, Jason. I do not have my own private plane. It has not worked itself into economic consulting yet.
That's when you know you've made it, right? That's what I always hear
Right.
from people. There's actually a term for it. They always say PJ. I'm a PJ chaser, and
Ah.
I always thought it meant you were chasing girls in their pajamas. No, they're chasing the private jet. Oh, that's how old and out of touch
Ah.
I am. Lauren, I
Well,
think I
hey,
was raised too
tell
Catholic.
everybody in North Dakota. I said, hey, I really had a lot of fun coming up there speaking. I was up there 3 times, I think, during the initial phases of the boom up there, and great people in North Dakota. Golly, those are really nice folks.
Well, we appreciate it very much, and I thank you for coming on and keeping the voice going and keeping us going and everything like that. So, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. We'll talk down the line.
Okay, buddy, take care.